So there's an ecosystem that's taking place, and it all has to take place in order to support the cloud. So if you're looking at cloud, it is not a standalone thing, because everything's got to work together to make cloud possible and to make software as a service possible as well. There are standards out there. The standards are important, for example, for security. Now, Salesforce talk about the SaaS 70. Basically, it's saying that I'm so secure, you don't have to worry. And that becomes a standard that a lot of other cloud service providers look towards and say, that's the kind of assurance I want to give my customers in terms of cloud and security, and when you put your data there and so on and so forth, and all the guarantees and assurances that comes with it. Cloud manpower. Obviously, if you don't have the right people who think cloud or develop in cloud or develop SaaS application that goes with it, you get into a lot of trouble. And then the innovation space, capital. Now, in the Silicon Valley, I was just back about a couple of weeks ago, 70% of all startups, if you don't have a cloud element, you're not going to get any funding. Simple as that, right, in the Silicon Valley. So that's how the whole industry can put it. Can we make this happen in Singapore? We certainly try, right? Working with IDA, and this talks want to, in a sense, educate what's happening out there. Okay, SaaS apps, whole bunch of it out there. Get lost just looking for these apps. Now, why did all these apps happen? Now, let's start with a bit of history lesson for the next 5 minutes or so. The internet bubble burst in 2001. That was $5 trillion wiped out. To give you an idea what $5 trillion means, it is 1/3 of the US GDP. That's a lot of money. In 2001, 1/3 disappeared. $5 trillion. That's a lot of money. And there's a reason why the internet bubble burst, because people were just totally hyped about eyeballs, about putting something on the portal, and getting people to just click and see and so on. And so they were selling dreams, they were selling vaporware and so on. And when they realized they couldn't make money from stuff like that, the whole bubble internet burst. And people start waking up, and the whole investment industry started waking up, because they have to think, we're not going to write they're not going to invest in vaporware, they're going to invest in an application that has absolutely no use. Right? So there's got to be a next paradigm. And the next paradigm sort of popped up when John and Mr. Tim O'Reilly coined the word Web 2.0 in 2004. The ASP was passed. There's a new buzzword that comes out, which was Web 2.0. Basically, what they were saying is that application has to be written with the idea of touching the niche, and also it to include in the application ability to have social networking. That's essentially the whole idea of Web 2.0. So he coined the idea, and a whole new wave came in where, wow, I'm going to now start thinking web, the internet as a platform. I'm going to start thinking all the different competencies I can put on the web. And by the way, cloud in 2004 wasn't buzzword then, right? It was slightly in 2007 when the buzzword cloud came along. So before the cloud was this Web 2.0, the whole social network and how all the different elements would make the app interesting on the web. And they were still data hosting people, and they were all surviving from the ASP. You know, the ASP era, that was in 2000, why they wiped out, is because they were having application service providers. You have truckloads of racks on data centers that is hosting SAPs or some enterprise application for companies. Essentially, it was an outsourced model in which the service provider, the ASP service, had to hire a whole bunch of people, and they built acres and acres of data centers and hired people who essentially was not able to manage the racks and application expectation of the customer, because a guy who had only worked so many hours, and if you have a whole warehouse of servers, electricity is basically overpay and overtime pay and all that had to come in. So the whole ASP model became very, very expensive. So that was the cause the whole thing to collapse. And then the whole Web 2.0 came in. So I'll skip this, but essentially in 1957, that's the reason why the internet existed, just to let you know. And then this is in 1989. This is how the World Wide Web looks like in 3D. It looks a lot different today, I'm sure, because it's 2011. Web 1.0 was all about eyeballs, and it's basically collapsed. Now Web 2.0 and Web 1.0 essentially is talking about the social networking. What was before just a bunch of directories, example, for taxonomy, you have wikis, right? In how you organize, and that's where you got Wikipedia. And of course, that's where you got that guy, what's his name, Assange, WikiLeaks, right? So that's the whole idea of when you have just double click and then you got Google AdSense. That's a transformation of how very simple ideas of web views and how you change that to cost per click or search engine optimization. So the whole transformation to the social space is what brought about this. And the Web 2.0 applications and category goes on. And of course, this eventually became the software as a service. And people's got to make money. That's where the whole software as a service comes in, where they can identify the best of the Web 2.0 application, how that fits into the enterprise space. So to win in the cloud for applications, essentially you've got to differentiate. Why? Because there are hundreds of thousands of applications out there. You've got to optimize it for agile infrastructure. Now, if you write an application that doesn't take advantage of the ability to scale and burst that what the cloud offers, you're pretty much not going to be successful in your application development or the adoption of the application. It's a whole new business model. It's no longer a licensing model. It's on-demand model, pay as you use model, 30 days trial. You don't like it, you don't have to continue using it. So that implies one thing. It has to be attracting a very large marketing environment. You have to market to a very large segment, and you have to be able to get success in that environment. Because if you're going to have only 10 followers, 10 likes in Facebook, I don't think you're going to be very successful. You're talking about hundreds and thousands, right, of likes, and then you'll be making the money from that. And you have to develop the strategic partnerships that go with it. And I'll talk about some of these in a little bit. Now, as you know, they're growing and growing, and the ability they can grow so exponentially is because what cloud technology offers to it, both from the infrastructure play, the platform play, as well as the application play. And when we talk about the idea of developing partners, very often a lot of them group together eventually to produce a service, right? And they don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's how the partnership grows. Now, some characteristics about the cloud that I would like to touch on. First of all, cloud essentially would allow you to have a collective intelligence, something that you never thought you would have. I think about a month ago, there was a whole idea of data as a service. So when you're working on a cloud environment and you have your application in the cloud, you allow for stability to scale very quickly, and that means that you have a large audience. And you'll be collecting a whole bunch of data. And this data which you are collecting, essentially you can harness that business intelligence out of it. So network effects from user contribution. And I think one of the most obvious thing is the viral piece, right? And GE is a good example, right? You got this Nicole, a bunch of likes, then you have Mr. Joshua, a bunch of likes, and so on. So the impact of social networking is very, very pervasive. And so the network effect from user contribution affects the way people come to your application, right? This is just an example. Blogging and wisdom of the cloud. Now, people actually read what you write on the cloud. You'd be surprised when you do a Google search when you're feeling a bit narcissistic and egoistic in a search your name in Google and see how many hits you get. So you will find that searching brings attention to a few things that I put on the cloud, whether it is a product placement or what somebody said about somebody, and the whole concept of branding and all that is impacted. So the wisdom of the cloud gives you a good idea what application is interesting and what influence is there, where the trends are going. So this is a good way to find out if your application that you want to use or the product you want to use, you want to hear what the crowd have to say. And by and large, they are quite influential in this area. Data is the next Intel insight. Essentially, like I said, the data is a service like last month's session. The data you collect, the intelligence you collect, you can data mine it, and it will be very significant in the way you will influence how you develop your cloud application or your SaaS application, because it will impact what needs to be rolled out. You prioritize the features that gets to go out first. From a developer point of view, it's not about the software release cycle anymore. It's not about I'm going to wait like 2 years before this application comes out. In fact, when you're developing the cloud environment, the applications are changing. The same application, you'll find a new feature, a minor change every quarter. You find a new little feature. You've got Facebook, right? You find there's always something changing, but you don't quite notice it, right? Until you like 1 year later, hey, you know, if I took a snapshot what was 1 year ago and what is today Facebook, I cannot recognize it. You look at Gmail, you look at Hotmail, it's constantly changing. Something is moving. No, you don't quite have a feel what it is, but it's cool. I like it. I enjoy it. So that's what has happening in the sales software development cycle in the cloud space, because it's very easy to make the changes. It's very easy to test it. It's very easy to roll back. So this is some of the impactful things that the cloud technologies is making to the development of application. Lightweight programming models. Essentially what's coming out is the modules that are coming up is lightweight and very precise. So you want to have an application that tell me how to get from A to B, you use godare.sg. And it just serves that one purpose that helps you do that one thing. So very often you'll find that the programming modules are becoming very specific, very niche. And because the ability for them to be very niche, it's a small team, cottage type development, they're able to meet a niche group, and then the viral, the networking comes on, and everybody start using. And then you get all the eyeballs, which then goes to the effect of Web 2.0 idea, which O'Reilly was saying, the social networking, and all that would drive the whole adoption of that application. Software above the level of a single device, I think it's so obvious. I mean, how many of you own an iPad? Nobody? I'm impressed. Essentially, everybody has a phone, right? So, your phone essentially becomes your work machine, right? You rely on it, you check on it. If it doesn't ring or text you, you feel like nobody loves you, you know? And so, we are looking at information and application and living and working all beyond a single device. It's no longer tied to a desktop, right? Needless to say, your user experience is richer because of the sheer competition out there. Nobody is going to enjoy programming in COBOL. You rather look at, you know, something richer. So the user experience becomes very rich because of the user interface, and where there's a lot of feedback that comes into your application. Now, I've always wanted and dreamed of this, that somehow Singapore will have a role to play in the world. And I think when we build the application in the cloud space, there's so many people you can talk to in Singapore today, whether it's a cloud service provider or whether it's a consultant on the SaaS space, whether you want to figure out what makes sense for your internal system, whether it should be a private cloud, all available in Singapore. And the expertise is just growing thanks in no small effort through ideas in drawing some of these talents. Now, I just want to end with this thing. I don't work for Microsoft. I'm not promoting Microsoft whatsoever. But I just want to draw on this simply because I think it's some exciting stuff that's coming our way, on the Microsoft Cloud Suite. The reason I want to talk about it is because it's hosted here. Microsoft has a production environment worldwide, and one of the production environment is in Singapore, which is very exciting. And the production environment consists of this entire suite of Microsoft products. How great is that? It's just right at our doorstep. I just want to talk about first the principles behind it. I had a chance to meet with the team that built this. I was at Redmond. I was talking to the CTO, the Office 365 engineers, as well as the product development team, as well as sales marketing guys. So I had a very interesting insight how they look at cloud and the services that roll out. So it could be a global Google Cloud service. It could be Salesforce. I just happen to have this graphic. It looks cool, right? But just think of it. It could be any services provided by those players. These services on those players have the ability to be on-premise as well as hosted. And I think it's very exciting now that you can now afford, for example, the entire suite for $10. If you want only 7, pay $2 for it. And this guy takes billions of dollars to develop this. So if you're feeling like you want to use it, you pay for it. And if you don't want to use it, you don't have to pay for it. And you switch it off. And so this is the kind of technology that's coming on in the cloud space, where in terms of productivity tools, collaboration tools, desktop management tools, that's going to come out to affect the way that we work, specifically from business point of view, the management of cost. If you have 10 staff and you have 15 staff, and later you reduce to 10 staff, how do you manage? Because you've got to buy 15 licenses. With the cloud on-demand, pay-as-you-use environment, you are able to do that. Then the second thing about it is, hey, I don't have to worry about setting up a server anymore. I don't have to set up an infrastructure to support my exchange. I don't have to worry about what is the background, the back-end systems that is supposed to help me do my job better. All this is somebody else's problem. So as a business owner, what's exciting is I focus on what I'm good at. If I'm very good at selling flowers, I'm just going to figure out all my marketing strategies to get my flowers sold. I'm not going to worry about my exchange is working, how much you're going to pay for setting up the exchange and so on. I just go to the portal, pick what I need. I have my identity in terms of a website, I have my email and so on. So those are really business-changing factors. And then if you're looking at a database environment, you know how sometimes it's difficult to index it, sort it out, and find out what servers fits what. Now you have a database that's available on the cloud. Now, of course, the whole consideration of security and all that, is another subject. But one thing is for certain, right, in terms of having applications that you can have on demand. One thing is for certain, you're in control, right? So for the first time, you can actually say and dictate to the service providers and the application software developers, I like you, I'm going to buy it, I'm willing to pay the $2 or $5 for it. And you're not talking about what used to be a license of $800, $900 just for the application. So there's a significant change that's coming about. And I think that's very exciting. So with that, I'm going to stop my monologue. And thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free at this time to raise your hand and ask.
So with Azure hosted in Singapore, we ought to be able to get cheapest I/O access to Azure, but instead it's 45 cents per gig. And that's all of Asia is 45 cents a gig versus America and Europe, which is 15 cents a gig.
Yes.
I can understand I/Oing out of China or Thailand, but Singapore, we should be able to get a lot cheaper access into Azure than the top, most
Actually, that's a very good question. Unfortunately, I do not work for Microsoft.
Is anybody from Microsoft here?
But I can venture a guess why that is so. All right. This is a step in the dark. They're focusing on US and Europe, and they are trying to get them to onboard from their DPOS and their old system to the new system. So the Asia is secondary in terms of their
Yeah, but BPOS
priority.
and Office 365 are small tenants.
Yeah, so they're focusing on the US and the Europe side, and so they kind of neglected us and they keep the price up so that we don't all jump in.
Yeah,
That's my guess.
It could be Singtel.
It could be, yeah. It could be. But in this case, what I know is that StarHub is the telco of choice working in Microsoft at this moment, and for Google Apps, it is Singtel at this moment.
You're talking something very specific there. Right?
Yeah. So they are offering from this too. They made an announcement just recently as well.
And on the question of money, when we purchase SaaS SaaS application on a subscription basis, so SaaS apps, and when we're paying ISV vendors overseas, we're hit with 10% royalty as a withholding tax. My understanding was that IRS was going to be reviewing that. Does anybody have any knowledge on that one? Because it'd be great to reduce, if we're going to pay 10% tax, then it's a pretty big overhead.
Yeah.
And withholding certs don't do anything for most ISVs overseas.
Yeah. What he's saying is that if you have your application, SaaS application hosted in Singapore, there's some taxation involved. And if is anyone from IRS? We can. The implication is very clear because where you tax or where business are taxed, they tend to go to a place where they have no tax, right? So the cloud is out there. So businesses that feel that if they're developing an application that's taxed will tend to go to a place where they won't be taxed. So for the IRS, I'm unfortunately unable to answer that.
Yeah,
but,
I think we
but that's an impact.
Accelerate cloud adoption in Singapore by reducing the software royalty payments that are withheld by IRS.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Thank you. That's my soapbox.
Maybe I have a question for you. How many of you use software as a service application?
How many use it and don't know it?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So small number, okay. And another question. How many of you use Facebook? Okay. So it goes to show that social networking application has an impact in adoption, and whatever that you have used, all has a underlying technology, and the use of virtualization, the use of cloud technologies in terms of the compute power, the way network virtualized, and so on. And if you had a chance also, understand that a lot of these technologies are moving to the green side as well, so that's good news for the earth, right? Besides being more efficient and virtualized and so on, so that's also good news for us. And one other interesting factor about the cloud technology, which is alluded to, very often we are using it, but we're not aware of it. But also I want to say that cloud is always a buzzword. There are actually a lot of things that go behind it. Some call it managed services, extreme outsourcing, and so on and so forth. So don't let those words frighten you. Essentially, like I said before, which I want to leave you this evening, it's going to open up a box full of services. Pick the services which you enjoy using, and that would influence the whole segment behind which all the developers come from, because your usage of it, your feedback in terms of usage, in terms of your comment and your network and your viral impacts the way all these applications are going to come together and to be offered to you as well. So these are some of the exciting stuff.
is there anybody here from NEA?
NEA?
So remember the haze, those hazy days we had last year, and it was October 23, 24, 25. So NEA is on Facebook and Twitter. That's their IT strategy. But when you wanted to access PSI readings the day of those haze, all servers were crashed and overloaded. So that's the classic use case for cloud.
Okay.
You could not get a PSI reading the only days you wanted it.
I've got a feeling the PSI reading servers were not on the cloud.
Correct.
So everybody is asking for it.
So somebody wants to cloudify the NEA. There's a fantastic opportunity right there.
Excellent, excellent.